continue with the exact values. Now we're going to do them in radians. So state the exact value of secant of pi over 4. First thing I want to decide is which angle, what quadrant is my angle in. This is pi over 2, this is 0. Pi over 4 lies in the first quadrant. So we're in quadrant 1. And we know to find the reference angle in the first quadrant, it's just whatever my angle is. So it's going to be pi over 4. Is the trig ratio positive or negative? In the first quadrant, secant is positive. So I'm going to be positive. So now I'll go to my exact value chart. We want secant of pi over 4. Secant pi over 4. My answer is going to be radical 2. Since I'm in the first quadrant, means my answer is positive, so I just get radical 2 as an answer. Our next example here, example 6, says state the exact value of cotangent of 7 pi over 4. Once again, we need to figure out which quadrant that's in. So if I go 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. I need to remember, so this has a denominator 4, so I can write this as 4 pi over 4, and I can write 2 pi as 8 pi over 4. So 7 pi over 4 is 1 less than 8 pi over 4, so we're going to end up being in the fourth quadrant. So we're in quadrant 4. What is the reference angle? So I'm looking for the difference here. My reference angle lies here. The difference between 8 pi over 4. So if you look at in the fourth quadrant to find the reference angle, you take 2 pi minus theta. So that's going to be 2 pi minus 7 pi over 4, which is really 8 pi over 4 minus 7 pi over 4, which is just going to give me a reference angle of pi over 4. So you can always just take this pi, let's see, you can just take pi and the 4. Is this ratio positive or negative? Cotangent in the fourth quadrant is negative. So my answer will be negative. So I know I have a negative here. Now I'm going to use my exact value chart. I'm going to look for cotangent of pi over 4. So cotangent of pi over 4 is going to be 1, but since we're in the fourth quadrant, it needs to be negative, so my answer is going to be negative 1. And our last example. State the exact value of cosecant of pi over 2. So first thing we want to figure out is what quadrant. This is 0 and this is pi over 2. This is one of those special angles where we land on the axes. So we don't need to use these, we only use the chart. So I'm going to go to my chart. I'm going to look for cosecant of pi over 2. And my answer here is 1.